Before we start, let me just say a couple of things, even though Ben gave a great intro. My name is Chasiotis. I'm the managing director at Minuttia. We are an organic growth acceleration agency for B2B SaaS companies. Okay. And before we get started, I would like to share a few things that are important in the context of I want everything between me and you to be honest and fully transparent. So this presentation, the first point of this presentation will focus on SaaS companies. However, most of its learning apply to other types of companies as well, especially B2B. The second point, many of the companies mentioned are Minutia's clients or friends. We are connected with them in some way. So expect that we will be positively biased towards them. AHS, which is featured in several cases with screenshots and so on and so forth, is the sponsor of our podcast, the SaaS SEO. Okay. We would, feature them either way. And the fourth one, content marketing and SEO are very opinionated fields. What follows represents just our way of perceiving things. Right or wrong, doesn't matter. It's just our way. Okay. We have many things to cover. Please stay with us until the end. And let's get started. So first of all, basic question. Why do we need three types of research? We know that we have, when it comes to our blog, three main content types. And especially if we're talking about SaaS companies, we have content that's more focused on the product-focused content. Okay. Then we have content that's created for a search audience, what, you will hear people call as SEO content. And last but not least, we have something that most companies do not use as part of their strategy, their content strategy, which is original content. Okay. And of course, each of these content types that we just shared have their own content formats. Okay. So for example, product focus has product updates, customer stories, product ROI reports, SEO, like informational pages, commercial pages, linkable assets, and so on and so forth. And then we have original content, of course, with surveys, data studies, invented concepts, personal and third-person narratives, contrarian content, network-based content, trends and events, and so on and so forth. Okay. Now, we have these content types, we have these content formats. Question is, why do we need three types of research? While right now, or at least up to this point, we were so focused on just our product and features and things we can do with our product or SEO. Okay. And, the question here is, wait, I thought that keyword research is enough. Well, not anymore. We have three reasons why. The customer journey in most SaaS categories is becoming increasingly multi-touch. And in that context, your goal should be to be omnipresent. The second one, most SaaS categories are quite saturated. The cookie cutter approach of conducting keyword research using an SEO software like Ahrefs or SEMrush and just going after these keywords isn't enough anymore. Your content strategy should not stop there. Okay. And in general, the third point that we have here, that your content strategy should not just stop to content that's text-based and goes to your blog. You should have different, content types and things that you do beyond text-based content. Okay. I would like to focus a bit on the first 2 points. And the first one was the fact that the customer journey, especially for SaaS companies, is becoming multi-touch. And here we have an ideal customer journey, right? We have one touch point, and this is the last touch point. And it's as simple as that. A visitor searches for something like frame.io alternatives on Google, clicks on the first result by markup, and signs up for a paid account with markup. That's great, right? I mean, who wouldn't want that? In reality, things are a bit different, okay? Because you can have as many as, in this slide, 6 touch points and even more in some cases, especially when we talk about enterprise software solutions, okay? So we have an example here. First touch point, a user searches for what is live streaming on Google, okay? They end up at a blog post by Uscreen. Second touch point, a couple of weeks later, after this person learned what a live streaming is. They search for something like how to put a live stream on your website, because now they have the idea of, that's interesting. Why shouldn't I put that on my website? Because we have an upcoming event and I would like to live stream that event on my website. Once again, they end up at a blog post by Usprint. This is touch point number 2. Then we have touch point number 3, which is after a few more weeks, the user searches for live streaming platforms on Google, because at this stage, they know that, if I want to put that thing on my website, then chances are that what I need is a live streaming platform. Now, at this stage, they are aware of Uscreen. And even though the search result by Uscreen is not first in the search results page, the user clicks on it. Okay. Third touch point. Fourth touch point, a couple of days later, the user decides to attend one of Uscreen's webinars on live streaming from your website. Okay. That's great. By the way, this is like hypothetical, right? Because as of today, Uscreen don't have such a webinar on their website. Okay. This is touch point number 4. Touch point number 5, a person from Uscreen sales team reaches out to the user as they have seen their visits through Clearbit. And of course, they have their email through the webinar attendee list. Okay. They share Uscreen's industry report. Once again, content-based, even though it entails outreach. The last one, sales rep passes on the prospect to an account executive. After a demo and a couple of follow-ups, the account executive manages to close the prospect. So we have 6 touch points. And in most cases, what happens nowadays, especially with SaaS companies, is that this is, pretty much how things happen. Okay. So even though this is ideal, I would say that we are mostly sheer. And in that context, I would say that you need way more than just, doing keywords and doing keyword research and uncovering keywords just so you can, let's say, capture people's attention while they're searching on a search engine like Google. Okay. I would like to touch on the second point of it, which is competition. And of course, competition is content type and format specific. However, in general, we are not seeing a general tendency toward increasing competition, especially for keyword types with commercial search intent. And of course, the reasons for that is obvious, right? Now, I would say, based on the 3 content types that we saw earlier, that if you're competing on product and features and SEO as an extension, for most SaaS categories, you're definitely not an innovator or an early adopter or anything like that. I would say that you are at the late majority. And to be honest, my personal opinion is that competing on features in 2023 is kind of a lost game, because even if you have like the feature of tomorrow or whatever, well, guess what? Your competitors can copy you and can even do it better than you if they have deeper pockets and they are VC-backed or whatever, okay? While with another content type like original content and like the formats that are included there, of course, you're not an innovator, because these things, like there are companies that do that for a while now, not even an early adopter, but you're somewhere in the early majority, because not so many companies leverage that content type yet. However, to uncover opportunities for original content and execute on those, you have to go beyond just keywords. Okay. I would like to share a couple of data points here. We did a study last year for alternative keywords, which, is a very, let's say, important keyword type for SaaS companies. And like, no surprise, the top 10 results of Google for 102 alternative keywords that we examined are fueled with review sites. Okay. And these sites are very aggressive when it comes to getting traffic and visibility for the terms that they target, because this is connected to their business model, right? They get this traffic. And of course, in many cases, they send it back to you and you pay for that traffic, right? We did the same for software keywords. And you can see that more than 40% of the pages were review sites. Once again, these folks are pretty aggressive when it comes to how they approach, let's say, search. And no surprise, they're also building links for their pages, as you can see here in this distribution graphic in terms of their keyword difficulty, okay, for the keywords that we examine. So in a nutshell, when it comes to competition, especially for like organic search that I just mentioned, things are becoming more and more competitive. The question is, what can you do as a company to stand out? Okay. And what you can do, once again, goes beyond just uncovering keywords and targeting these keywords. Okay. So this brings us to the topic of today's webinar, which is like, what else can we do? What are these three types of research to help us define our content strategy? The first is audience research. Okay. The second is keyword research. And the third is customer research. Let's start with audience research. Now, when it comes to audience research, we have the following pillars. We have four of them. First, identify websites your target audience is visiting often, either for work purposes, for example, it's a tool they use for some reason, or to consume content on, for example, a media publication, an online magazine, a blog, whatever they may be visiting often. Okay? Then we have communities that your target audience is a part of. And you can think of places like, communities and groups on Slack, Discord, Reddit, Facebook, and so on and so forth. Then we have sources of influence. For example, podcasts, YouTube channels, social media accounts, newsletters, etc. Okay. And last but not least, we have general insights about your target audience, of course, when it comes to how they describe themselves, what topics they are interested in, and like they would love to hear more about, and so on and so forth. Let's take a step back and make a hypothetical scenario. And let's assume for a minute that we are an online proofing software that design companies, creative studios, and web development companies use to collaborate on their work with each other and with their clients. The person who buys from us is the design lead of the company. Okay. And of course, like, I'm not a designer, not a creative person. There are different variations as to how you can describe like that person, okay, and their responsibilities and their role in the company. Now, based on what we just heard earlier, audience research and these four pillars, remember, we have websites, we have communities, sources of interest, and we also have general insights. You can see here that this is a small effort to map things out and try to understand what's going on in these people's like world, okay? And more specifically, online world. So when it comes to websites, you can see that we have things like websites like Dribble that these people may be visiting often, Figma that they may use as part of like their daily work, and also like publications like uxplanet.org, Design Milk, It's Nice That, and so on and so forth. Okay. Then we have communities on like places like Reddit or like standalone communities. On Reddit, something like graphic design or UX design, and standalone communities like Designer Hangout, and so on and so forth. Then we have sources of interest, and this includes anything, as we discussed, from like social media accounts these people like follow online and interact with, like Smashing Magazine, UX Magazine, all the way to podcasts these people may listen to and follow, for example, like UI Breakfast, and so on and so forth. Okay. And last but not least, we talked about UX design, general insights that these people are interested in and may use as part of their, let's say, identity, professional identity online. And this could be, okay, we managed to identify the hashtags that these people use online, like UX design or design thinking or accessibility, and so on and so forth, or things and topics that these people are interested in, such as user research, like Figma plugin, because guess what? Like, I use Figma and I need to know what are the best plugins to help me do like the tasks that I have to do. User testing, brand identity, information architecture, and so on and so forth. Having all these pieces, let's say, of information is extremely important, not because this will allow you to, like, as I said earlier, and I will emphasize that, like, in several times throughout this presentation, we just have to stop thinking merely about keywords, right? Because here we have the ability to do so many things. For example, find opportunities to sponsor like communities or podcasts, or get on these podcasts as a guest, right? Or discuss topics that may or may not have keywords behind them or search volumes that these people, our target audience, is interested in. Okay. Now, since we are in 2023, and I guess one of the things that dominates, let's say, our daily professional lives is AI, I would like also to integrate AI here and discuss how this can help in the context of like conducting audience research. And here you can see that the prompt we have is to specifically ChatGPT. Yeah. Our target audience is people with a foreign job title. Can you please give me websites these people visit, social media accounts they follow, and so on and so forth? Now, of course, the output here is filtered. Some of the results are good and actually could be leveraged, like, awards, Smashing Magazine. These are spot on, and we saw them in the previous slide, right? But of course, not all of them will be spot on, okay? And as you can see here, we have a second prompt. Can you please give me some podcasts these people may also listen to? And, once again, I'm not a designer, but it seems that these are relevant podcasts and podcasts that these people may listen to. Okay. So I would say that in a nutshell, even though there are many limitations and of course, this webinar is not about AI, I see AI moving forward, helping us in conducting audience research. Okay. Now, an example here of how would that look like, and I really hope that none of our competitors are on this webinar. While conducting audience research for our own brand, okay, for Minuttia, we discovered that one of the newsletters our audience is reading and, is subscribed to is Contentment by Tracy Wallace. After finalizing our audience research, we decided to sponsor this newsletter, okay? And this leads to an increase in brand value for Minuttia, adds one more touch point with companies that will interact with us or will reach out to us to ask for help at some point in the future. And of course, generates demand, okay, for Minuttia's services. The thing is that we wouldn't have sponsored this newsletter if we wouldn't have conducted this audience research. And actually what we did in our case is that we asked people that we know are eligible, let's say, quote unquote, to buy from us, what newsletters are you subscribed to? Okay. Which are the newsletters that, land on your inbox and you're happy to open them and read the content. And many people said that this is one of the newsletters I read. Okay. This is why we decided to take that step. This is how audience research can help you drive actual business impact. Okay. Do we have any questions?
Can you hear me?
Nope. Okay. The keyword research is going to be a bit intense. Let's get right into it.
Sorry to interrupt you. My microphone was muted. We did have one question from Tim, which was about social posts. I think it was kind of basically what it would be the role of social media in this. And I also would like to add to that, you talked about newsletters, but what about influencers maybe? B2B, is there a growing role?
One use case that I can think of right now is that if you have created a piece of content that you think is shareable and worth of people's attention, then identifying these people and sources of influence is a great way to get in front of people's eyes by you have something which is great, a great piece of content, you reach out to these people. Some of them may share it online, and that would help you get visibility in front of the eyes of the people and the audience that you want to get in front. All right. And an example here is that we created a piece of content a while back on exploding topics and how they managed to grow from X to Y and so on and so forth. And the person behind Exploring Topics is Brian Dean, who is very popular among like SEO professionals and content marketers and so on and so forth. So what we did is that we reached out to that person and we asked Brian Dean to like consider this piece of content. And he actually did. He shared it online on LinkedIn and on Twitter. And I can tell you that this share brought a lot of traffic, first of all, to our website and to this particular blog post. But taking a look at analytics later on, and more specifically Clearbit, we saw that many of the companies are like exactly the types of companies that we work with. Okay. So that's just a use case. It can be really powerful. And that's just one use case, right? There are so many other things that you can do.
That's genius. It's genius to create a piece of content to target an individual that you want to get them to share if you want to. Yeah. If you want. Yeah. Cool. That's it on the questions. Thank you.
Okay. Let's get to keyword research. Okay. And let me just say that we recently did a webinar with ClearScope on SaaS keyword research. If you are working at a SaaS company and if you're interested, you can check it out. We also have it in the resources section slide at the end. Okay. So when it comes to keyword research, which is the second type of research that we need in order to define our content strategy, and for obvious reasons, right? Organic search is still a part of the journey, right? And a like big one in many cases. We have different types, okay? And we have some examples, as you can see here. So first of all, let's see all these types. We have errors. For example, Safari can't establish a secure connection. This is an error. We have informational, how to create an online course. Okay, I'm looking for information on how to do something or what is something. We have commercial, and at Minuttia, we categorize and we split, let's say, terms with commercial intent into two categories. We have tier A and tier B. Tier A is something like live streaming platforms. At that stage, I have no indication that the person who is searching for live streaming platforms is aware of the most prominent players when it comes to live streaming. Okay, let alone be using one of them and is looking for an alternative solution or comparing this solution to another solution. Okay, and then we have alternatives and comparisons like Sanavi's Monday, as you can see here, which is obviously, as we see it at least a bit like deeper when it comes to the journey and the stage this person is at. Of course, we have integrations, Shopify to QuickBooks, navigational, HubSpot Academy, transactional. I'm looking for I'm ready to take some sort of action with monetary value. Like I'm looking for clear scope pricing, job to be done. I have a very specific job that I need to do and I need you to help me with that. Like I'm looking for a business proposal template. And last but not least, we have linkable assets like VOIP statistics. Okay. Void statistics. These are the types and these are the examples. Now, obviously, not all of these are intended to have a content page behind them. For example, navigational, like the example that we share here. Obviously, this is going to be page on the website, right? Not a blog post or anything like that. Now, once again, let's take a step back just so we can start making things clear and make a hypothesis. We are, like earlier, an online proofing software that design companies, creative studios, and web development companies use to collaborate on their work with each other and with their clients. How will the keyword research process look in this case? So this is the process. We have 4 steps. The first would be to make a list of seed, semantic, and branded terms. We will see how that looks in a minute. The second, make a list of competitors from an organic search and business standpoint. Bear with me. Identify keywords by using search intent modifiers. We will see how that looks like. And actually, I will share with you a template and a video that you can use, on demand to be able to do that. And last but not least, okay, we identified all these keywords, but we also have to find a way to prioritize them because for efficiency purposes and for all these other reasons, like, for example, budget and so on and so forth, we can cover and go after every keyword that we will identify. So we need to have a way of prioritizing these keywords and kind of like evaluating them and prioritizing them so that we can put them in our content schedule. Okay. And of course, here we have a template that can help you exactly with that. Now, in the first step, we talked about seed, semantic, and branded terms. Okay. Now, when it comes to seed terms, remember the example that we used. We are an online proofing software. Okay. Seed terms would be things like proofing, markup, review, approval, annotation, and so on and so forth. These are like tightly connected to the product's capabilities. Then we have semantic terms, which are somehow connected, but, website, for example, is something that obviously is connected, but it's not as tightly connected as proofing or annotation, which is describing exactly what the product can do. Okay. So we have all these semantic terms. And then we have branded terms that, as you can see, we split into two columns, categories. We first have tools and branded terms for tools and solutions that these people, our target audience, may be using as part of their everyday work, right? And we also have names of prominent competitors, right? Like other solutions that have similar capabilities to our solution. Okay. Then we talked about organic search competitors and business competitors. So organic search competitors are all the websites whose audience and organic visibility overlap with our website. Okay. We will see examples. And then we have business competitors, obviously direct and indirect competitors that have similar capabilities to the ones that our product has. Okay. Let's see some examples. For the first column, organic search competitors, you would argue that, why should I make a list of websites like Creative Blog or The Future or Design Inspiration or 99 Designs? Well, I don't compete with these brands and companies, right? These are publications. These are irrelevant. Well, the truth is that on an organic search level, you don't compete only with your direct and indirect competitors, because these websites here in the first column may have sometimes smaller, sometimes bigger, but there will be an overlap with the search terms and in general, the audience that you want to reach. So it's extremely important that you have them and include them as part of this keyword research. Okay. And second, of course, it's obvious why we have all the business competitors that we know we will compete against on the search. And one use case here would be that we have these websites and it's great. We can conduct a content gap analysis and see what keywords or keyword gap analysis, let's say, for the sake of this presentation, and see what keywords we miss and they have visibility for, and we should consider going after because, they would benefit our business or overall content strategy in one way or another. Okay. Now, let me jump off the presentation for a minute. The thing is that you could say here, okay, George, that's great. You kind of broke down the process, but what's next? So I will share with you, and you will have access to that. You can make a copy actually. Two templates. The first is a keyword research template, which will help you in terms of what we discussed earlier, prioritization and evaluation by using our, way of perceiving things and coming up with what we call the opportunity score for each keyword that is included in your keyword database that you have identified based on not just one or two metrics, like, for example, just keyword difficulty or global volume. Based on these metrics, some additional metrics, and the ability to assign weights and essentially use these metrics as variables to come up with the opportunity score. Okay. I will not say more. I will only say for now that you can watch this video here. It's a long video that explains exactly how to use the template. And then we also mentioned in the keyword research process, this was step number 3, using search intent modifiers to be able to conduct your research. Of course, after you have made a list of all the terms and websites and so on and so forth that we discussed, you can use that. Once again, there is a video very detailed on exactly step by step how to use it and come up with your keywords. And in a nutshell, what we say here is that you have the process, you have the search intent modifiers, and you know how to use them. You have the tool to put, the keywords, as you can see here. And not only that, but also to come up with the opportunity score. And then you can make decisions as to, what keywords you are going to cover first, next, and so on and so forth. Okay. Now, the question here is that enough? Okay. Is that enough to help us reach our goals? The reality is, especially if we are talking about SaaS companies, your competitors are most likely doing some or all of the things that we just said. Okay. They know these keyword types. They know how to find these keywords. Okay. Many of these keywords and keyword types are quite saturated, especially those with commercial intent. This is something that we saw earlier, okay, when we talked about competition. And last but not least, we will repeat something that we mentioned earlier. Your goals should change from being present only when there is intent to being constantly present, since the SaaS lifecycle journey is becoming increasingly multi-touch. Okay. So let's make the same scenario as earlier with a minor tweak this time. And let's assume that we are an online proofing software that design companies, creative studios, and web development companies use to collaborate on their work with each other and with their clients. The person who buys from us is either the business owner or someone who manages other people. Okay. So in that context, you should think a bit differently, and you should employ what we call at Minuttia role-based keyword research. We pull ourselves out, from the, I would say, typical keyword research process and say, how can we reach this person regardless of what they are searching for and regardless of whether this thing they are searching for at this moment is relevant to my product's capabilities or not. So you should think about 6 things. How to help this person run their business. For example, graphic design sales tax. Okay. We are an online proofing software. So you would argue, what does that have to do with like online proofing, right? Remember, we don't want to be present only when there is intent. We want to be present. Okay. Then you need to help this person grow their business, how to get clients for web design, you need to help this person work with other people. For example, graphic designer interview questions, because I'm hiring for graphic designers as the business owner. Okay. You need to help this person in terms of their relationship with technology. For example, I'm looking for Webflow plugins because one of the tools that we use as part of our services is Webflow. Okay. You need to help this person stay up to date. I'm looking for best design conferences. Now, here you would argue that, you know what, George, okay, but a business owner, chances are they know what the best design conferences are. And you would be right. All I'm saying is that this is more of like a change in terms of the mindset we have and how we approach keyword research. Okay. So in that context, stop thinking about that for a moment and accept that you need to be present. Okay. And last but not least, you need to help that person and be there when they want to learn new things. For example, I'm looking for graphic design books. Okay. And this is role-based keyword research, which goes beyond the typical process that your competitors know and most likely do. And not only your competitors, but also increasingly nowadays, review sites, affiliate sites, and so on and so forth. Okay. Now, this is the last slide when it comes to keyword research. And I would like to discuss a bit some biases and like pre-existing notions that we have. every page needs to have a target keyword. No, it doesn't. If anything, a website needs to have pages that don't have a target keyword. The keyword difficulty is high. That's okay. The keyword difficulty is a great metric developed by AHers. However, it has some limitations. And I would say that the biggest limitation is the fact that it takes into account solely the number of referring domains. Okay. And there are so many other factors that play a role and, of course, are weighted differently based on the search query when it comes to rankings. Okay. The search volume is low. That's fine. Okay. What if the search volume is low, but this is a very highly targeted keyword that you need to have visibility for because it has a very high search intent. Okay. And by the way, these two things, the keyword difficulty is high and the search volume is low, with the tool that I shared with you and the fact that you can assign weights to these two metrics, you will be able to give them as much like importance as you want and like weight them however you like as part of your evaluation process. Okay. I can't find this keyword on my SEO software. I want to believe that if anything, one of the main messages I want to pass on through this like webinar is the fact that it's okay if you can't find a keyword in your SEO software, as long as you feel confident that this is a topic that you need to discuss because it's like something that your audience is interested in. Okay. Especially when it comes to SaaS companies, let's launch alternative and comparison pages and call it a day. I would say that, we saw earlier that especially these pages have very high, intense competition. So your strategy should go beyond that. And last but not least, this keyword is not relevant to our product. If what you're doing, the reason why you're doing keyword research and why you're targeting keywords is only to feature or to go after keywords that are relevant to your product, I would say that you haven't quite understood how the game is played. Because if you want to be, let's say, the absolute dominant when it comes to a specific category like online proofing that we discussed earlier, then you need to talk about all these topics and all these things, some of them like relevant and some of them not so relevant that your audience is maybe like interested in. Okay. We would see examples and best practices, but I will skip them. But you will have access to them. And I highly recommend that you take a look. We have examples for all of the, along with best practices for each like keyword type that we saw earlier. I highly recommend to take a look. Many of them are very interesting in terms of like the execution. Okay. Do we have any questions before we move forward to customer research, which is the last of the three types of research?
Cool.
Yes.
I think one good question here that we're talking about. I guess you're not just focusing on the bottom of funnel, but also doing this top of funnel, kind of having this brand impact kind of stuff. Two questions. So one, like how can you give us again, like how you would sell this internally, like moving away from the product, trying to invest in more like top of funnel stuff, and then I guess related to that, how much content are we talking about to have this like presence on the SERPs? Like how much, like what kind of companies can invest that much money to get like this top of funnel presence, like you kind of say?
That's a great point and a valid concern. I mean, like you have to sell it somehow. And I will say what I said to the webinar we did on how to budget for content marketing. I highly recommend that you take a look on our YouTube channel, which was something in the lines of course, you can't like go to your, for example, CMO and ask for more budget to like execute on a bet or on like being present for every term that like your target audience is like looking for and so on and so forth. You have to gain some political capital, let's say, and the way to do that, just so you can ask for more, is to get some results based on what the business is interested in. Okay? in most cases, that's like revenue. So unfortunately, you have to do the stuff that everyone else is doing, get some buy-in, and then I would say that in most cases, you will have the extra buy-in to do all these other interesting stuff, or interesting things that like will help you with the things that we share as part of this like webinar. Okay. Now, when it comes to the number of pieces, that's a very tricky topic. I don't think that I have a good answer because anything I say is like may be contextually irrelevant because it really depends on their like category, situation, like budget, like so many different aspects. So I would prefer not to answer this question because, giving an answer would be wrong.
Okay, fair enough. Cool. I'm gonna hand it back over.
That's great. We have one last part, which is customer research. And it's one of these things that we push so hard our clients, and we try to communicate the value. And I really hope that more and more companies will understand the value of that. Okay. So as we had in the audience research part, we have some pillars here. Okay, the first is customer insights. Insights from people who pay for your product, which you can retrieve through customer surveys, jobs to be done interviews, and other activities. Then we have sales insights. Insights from people who show interest in your product, regardless of whether they bought from you or not, which you can retrieve by analyzing your sales calls, assuming you have those calls recorded, or at least a portion of these calls recorded, okay, and transcribed. And of course, constantly asking for insights from your sales team. These are the people who are at the forefront and they talk to the people who want to buy from you and show interest in your product. Then we have product insights, insights that are product specific, which you can retrieve by analyzing your customer support tickets, product reviews on review sites like G2, run in product surveys, and so on and so forth. And last but not least, something that these three pillars don't really cover, exit insights, okay? Like your competitors, people are looking for alternatives to your solution, okay? And maybe they will cancel. They have canceled already. So it would be nice to get insights from people who used to pay for your product and for whatever reason decided to cancel and either look for another solution or stop using solutions like yours altogether. Okay. Now the question is, what are we looking for specifically, based on these four, pillars that we just saw? We try obviously to identify pain points that people have. Okay. We try to understand what are the jobs to be done and what are the best use cases for our product. We want to know what makes people choose our solution and what makes people not to choose our solution. We want to understand what makes people leave our competitors, and we want to understand what makes people leave our solution. What are the best and worst features of our product? We can be perfect in everything and expect that people get great value out of every feature that we have. Who are our real direct and indirect competitors? And I will share an example about that a bit later. What people do before and after they use our product, just so we can understand what are some additional things that we need to talk about. And of course, anything else that you can retrieve as part of the customer research process. Okay. Now, we discussed a bit earlier the role of AI in audience research. And I was honest, like, I really think that I see some value there. And I see some possible use cases moving forward for audience research and, the use of tools like ChatGPT. What about customers? And we gave the following prompt to ChatGPT to try to understand whether this is like, whether a tool like that can help us with customer research. One of our competitors is project management software Asana. Can you please give us a few weak points of Asana regarding its product, pricing, customer support, etc. So we can use them in a comparison page. And you can see here that we got some questions. The output in general looks truthful and something we can trust, right? However, when we ask, where did you find these points? Can I trust you and add them to a comparison page? Or we may lose potential customers because they are inaccurate. Okay. And you can see that these points, of course, they may be outdated because this is one of the limitations that these tools have, at least right now. But most importantly, may not be aligned with what Asana customers may think about the product, and especially about the product and what they think about the product today. Okay. So in a nutshell, when it comes to audience research, yes, we see some like use cases and it will get more interesting. But when it comes to customer research, I believe that it's on you to reach out, to like conduct a customer survey, to get on interviews, to ask for feedback, to analyze things, and so on and so forth. Okay. There could be some like potential use cases in the future if there is the ability to, for example, crawl live data and give us a sentiment analysis or like give us keyword insights and so on and so forth. But as of now, I would say that customer research should like be done by people. Okay. Now, I said earlier that I will share with you an example. And the example that we have when it comes to customer research is Datapod. Okay. We have this piece of content. As you can see, the title reads Best 16 Free Google Sheets Dashboard Templates for 2023. Some useful information. According to Ahrefs, this piece of content by Datapod runs for more than 2,000 keywords and brings in more than, let's say, approximately 5K of organic visits per month. Okay. It also ranks number one for the target term Google Sheets dashboard templates as of today, Friday, February 24th. That's great. At some point, after all these dashboard templates and so on and so forth, you will see a section that reads, what is the drawback of using Google Sheets dashboard templates? Okay. Now, Datapod is a tool that helps you bring all your KPIs in one place, and it helps you with dashboarding for various use cases and so on and so forth. Through customer research, by actually talking to people, the company's co-founder, CMO, who is also a friend of mine, identified that, you know what, we thought that, and this exists, by the way, it applies, but we thought that our competitors are like other tools with similar capabilities. But it seems that people, many people at least, okay, not all of them, can't be all of them, but many people are also using Google Sheets. Okay. If that's the case, through the customer interviews that this person conducted, they tried to understand what may be the limitations of Google Sheets, because we thought that our competitors are other dashboarding and KPI tools. And we see that, Google Sheets is actually a competitor that we haven't thought of. So what are some of its drawbacks or limitations? Okay. And you can see here, like it's all manual, limited functions and formulas, and so on and so forth. These drawbacks are the outcome of interviews with people who used to go to use Google Sheets and switch to a solution like Datapod. And I would say, in this case and in all cases like that, you wouldn't have retrieved this data if you wouldn't have, jumped on a call with a person and have an honest discussion with them. Like, what were you using earlier, and what made you like use a solution like ours? Okay, and of course, in most cases, there's no like tool or SEO software or whatever that will give you these kinds of insights that may seem like, okay, I mean, I could get them from an AI tool that can help me create content briefs. After all, what it does, it's crawling, the top 10 results, and it will give me the heading structure and so on and so forth. Maybe, but as I see it, it's better to get to the ultimate source of truth, none other than people. Okay. People who used to use this solution and now they are looking for something else. Okay. And by the way, it is a page that converts people into, uh, I think they have free trials or whatever the offering may be, just because the drawbacks are spot on. Okay. Um, we have the resources here. You can click here and make a copy of the search intent modifiers sheet that we shared, the keyword research tool that we shared. And also we have 2 webinars on how to build topical authority. We did with ClearScope a while back, and on how to conduct SaaS keyword research, which we did, I think, this month. And feel free to watch them if you want to dive deeper into things. That would be all.
Hey, amazing. Thank you so much, George. That was incredible. Such a deep dive. A lot to process. I actually have 2 big questions, really, just to spark some conversation there. But I just find that I just lost the page. Okay, there you go. Um, one first kind of big question I had is like, what's the role of like experimentation and testing in all this? I felt like, maybe in some of the examples that you gave as well, like, what if you accidentally think your audience are interested in one thing, or you get slightly, I don't know, you base a lot of your big bets on this research. How do you know you got it right? How can we verify you got the right audience? And I guess how can we improve over time our targeting?
I would say that experimentation is and should be part of the process. I mean, I don't see another way of learning what like sticks and what doesn't stick and what works and what doesn't work. So it's okay if some of the assumptions that you made or some of the things that you perceived initially as right, they turn out not to be like right. But I think that it's necessary to do it, because I honestly don't see another way of like learning and improving upon your learnings, and at the end, like figuring things out, which is what we all try to do, right?
Yeah, definitely. Um, I've got to say, you mentioned your point about at the end there, the company that realized that Google Sheets was probably their biggest competitor. I think that's such a good point in this. Like, the first step in competitor research is really understanding your true comparables. And most of the time, for software, that's someone's put together in Excel, someone's asked an intern to do this. Like, you've got to be better than them.
But do you know what the thing is though? The thing is that I would say most inexperienced uh, founders, because Datapod, by the way, is an early stage company, would think just in terms of like keywords. Okay, what are the keywords that our like potential customers, let's say, may be looking for? And they would go on a tool and they would search for these keywords, and then they would create like pages on these keywords. But what they miss is the fact that what your like customers or people who you perceive as like your customers can tell you, there's no SEO software or tool that can give you this kind of information. The fact that, and I have another example. We ran a survey with one of our clients last year. It was, and as part of this survey, there was a question: what were you using before you start using our tool, and so on. And we had some thoughts about. We were certain that these are our competitors. These are the tools. Like, we know them, and we have figured out the alternative pages, the comparison pages. That's it. Yeah. But the thing is that our audience in several cases pointed out 2 tools, but that we have never heard of. Okay. And when we like searched these tools and understood that these tools are actually they had the capability. This is why people were using it. One of our main capabilities, we saw that a capability. We then it made sense, and we were like, okay. I mean, we will create still alternative pages and comparison pages and so on for these competitors that we knew, but also we need to look what these folks are doing and also see if there's potential for like alternatives and like comparison for these folks, because these two tools have been mentioned in several cases by the people who actually pay for the product today. So, and this is an insight that no tool can give you, right? You actually have to ask and research some ways to achieve that, like jobs to be done interviews or like customer interviews in general, let's say, to not overcomplicate things, customer surveys and so on and so forth.
Yeah, definitely. There's, I think anyone who's worked in SaaS could probably to resonate with that. Like you tend to come across the same people in sales calls all the time, and they wouldn't necessarily be the person that you see online when you type this tool in. Like maybe they haven't invested in their SEO. They're really good at networking. Or like there's the smaller software brands sometimes you're up against like every time.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's not something that we just like preach and we don't practice. I shared the example and I shouldn't have shared it because, if any of our competitors is here, they would they will probably reach out to Workweek and Contentment. We asked people like what newsletters are you subscribed to? And they told us, and there was a pattern, like almost like a pattern, like I'm subscribed to this newsletter. And I was like, okay, we have that a lot. Maybe we should do something about it.
Yeah.
It's the same for SaaS and for like any other business for that matter.
I've run into this problem before, so maybe it's good to ask you. But like on that point, when we've asked our customers, this is a company I worked at a few years ago. We asked our customers, and all we found really is that they all listen. The one thing they have in common is they all read like Harvard Business Review or something like that. Very like untargeted. Everyone reads it. It was a common theme in the industry thing. How would you deal with like apart from sponsoring Harvard Business Review?
That's a very good point. And I mean, like in our case, for example, I know that, or at least I assume that, yeah, our target audience, most likely they also read occasionally TechCrunch. Okay? But that's like most tech people in Texas and so on and so forth, like one way or another, they read an article or they like read a piece about company raising another round or whatever. This doesn't say much. Okay. I think that you have to dig a bit deeper. And definitely through this, especially the audience research process, there will be some, let's say, some pieces of information that like are not as like valuable for you on a very practical level. You just have to keep digging. And I believe that even if audience research doesn't work well for you, then something else will definitely work. Customer research will like give you insights that you can leverage and use. And the opposite, like maybe customer research not, but audience research may give you these insights. So I think that's a valid point. I would just, dig deeper into things.
Yeah. I think for that, we ultimately found we joined so many different communities, Slack groups, everything, and found one of them was very active, very like good, and the rest was so like keep digging is great advice. I have one final question, and this one's maybe for people like you, SaaS, maybe SEO agency people or like freelancers. One challenge I guess they're gonna is access. If you do a customer research, I want your customer support tickets. It's kind of a hard question to broach sometimes. Like, how do I get access to all insight with your clients? How do you get access to the data?
That's a great question. And I will tell you that from the smallest to the like biggest company, we work with public companies from the US and Canada. We never had an issue get any kind of information that we asked. Of course, it's not like when we ask, like, give us sales calls. they will give us, I don't know, 100 sales calls, but even 10 is enough for us to analyze and to like get insights from. Some things are also public, like product reviews on sites like G2. You can just scrape them. Um, but yeah, that's not an issue we had. Um, it gets a bit tricky when you ask to interview with their customers. This is a bit tricky. But what you can do instead of that is just like ask for customer interviews. If they are a serious company, chances are they will have them. They can like share them with you, you can transcribe them and can use them. Okay. So we never had a problem with that really. And once again, even with like public companies, and they are like very cautious with information sharing and information security and so on and so forth.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I mean, I guess you got to ask and convey like the benefit of all this. But yeah, I really like the G2 tip. You can often see competitors' weak points in G2 quite easily.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Is there anything else you want to share? We've done over an hour, so we're on time.
Nothing to share. Just, for people who are still with us, feel free to check out our website, minuttia.com, double T, our YouTube channel where we publish every, let's say, video version of our podcast with weekly episodes and also like our webinars and so on. And if you want to hear from us, make sure to like subscribe to our newsletter. And if you want to connect with me personally, even though nowadays I don't have the time to be there as often, but feel free to connect on LinkedIn, say hi. And when I see that me or someone from my team, we will get back to you. Okay.
Perfect. Yeah, cool. Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm going to cut this up and probably share it and send it to you. And everyone listening and who joined will get sent it as well. So you'll see a lot more of this around then probably. But yeah, thank you again, George. Come back anytime. First one done.
Thank you to Ben and to Spotify for like organizing this and putting this together, and to all the people who joined us and stayed with us until the end. Thank you very, very much. Have a great weekend. Oh,
Stop. Okay, I think we're not live anymore. Again, thank you very much.
okay. So